All right, we're just almost ready here. Okay, we're almost ready here. We are going to do this. We are going to do this and share. And we are going to talk about home inspections. Yay. We're going to talk about home inspections in just a minute. Thank you for your patience. There's nothing on the screen for you guys. I don't know why. Oh, that's not what I want. Okay. You don't need to come in on Zoom. You're right in your room.
Easier to see.
But why do I not see any? Could you give me the remote?
Oh, no.
Can you give me the, can somebody hand me that remote? Because I need to, yeah, I know, that's the problem. No, wrong one, the other one. We're gonna start in just a minute. The other remote. Where's the other remote control? For goodness sakes. This isn't the right one. Where's the other remote control? Oh, see, it's right on the thank you. All right, why have I got nothing happening here? It should be automatic. What's going on here? Goodness. To power go out?
We can see the screen.
You can see it.
I can see it on this screen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so now I should be able to go here. I don't know what happened here. Source, PC. No, because Chromecast isn't behaving. Come on. Oh, it's making all kinds of noises. All right. Why do I not see nothing? So you see it on your screen?
Yeah.
It says mastering the home inspection process. That is so weird. All right. I don't understand it. Why is it not working? It was working before. Maybe I need to do, we're going to try one more thing before we get started here. We're going to try. We're going to try one more thing. Because I don't want to eat up all your time on this. I don't even know if this will work. Nope. I don't get it. Why it's not working.
Device power.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Um, so maybe you guys should come onto the Zoom so you can see the screen, because for whatever reason, I am unable to
Okay.
get it on this screen here. I don't know why. And also, why is it not want to start? Why am I having all these technical problems? Okay. Do you still see it on your screen? Okay. Well, Melanie's coming in. I mean, I can see it on my screen. I don't think it's showing up there, but it doesn't matter. Can you see it on your screen? Does it say mastering the home inspection process? Okay.
Now I see.
And who's this? Really? Really? I'm missing somebody. There he is. All right, Patrick, thank you guys for your patience. So has it loaded, Melanie?
Yeah.
Do you see the slide?
Yes.
All right. And Gia, you see it? All right. And Patrick, you're seconds away from it.
I see it.
Okay, but I'm hearing all kinds of. Let me just turn off my sound. Sorry. Because they need to hear me if they're going to watch the recording. Okay, we are finally ready to get started. I apologize for anyone who's been waiting, wondering. We are talking today about mastering the home inspection process or understanding home inspections. And my goal in this hour is to walk you through everything you need to know, but we're afraid to ask about home inspections. So the first thing I want to say is home inspections are really important and should never be foregone. You should always get a home inspection. There's really only one time ever that you don't need a home inspection, and that's when you're working with an investor who is buying a flip. You know, they're buying a flip property, their contractor's been there, that's a complete tear down, or they're going to need to redo everything. They don't care. But for almost every other sale, even if it's new construction, even if it's been built recently, even if it is, we already have reports from the seller and you're representing a buyer, you should still get a home inspection. So the way to think about a home inspection is that it is a report about the properties, the systems of the property, right? It is about the electrical, the plumbing, the heating, the flooring, walls, doors, windows. What's up top, what's down below the house? What does the foundation look like is sometimes covered in a home inspection report. The inspection may cover the exterior lot and any detached buildings. Sometimes they'll almost usually comment on the roof in most cases, and the gutter system, the drainage system. They'll usually comment on the chimney and fireplace, but not always. And anything they see that looks untoward or incorrect. The important thing to understand is that it is not an appraisal. There's no valuation of the property that is given. There are no guarantees or warranties. These inspections typically last just a few hours. There's no way they're going to know everything there is to know about a house in just a couple of hours. So it isn't a guarantee. The other thing is, things happen. Houses have kind of like a life, like a timeline to them. They're kind of like, in a way, kind of organic, even though it's a physical structure. Over time, things change. So what a home inspector says this month may be different next month when you go to the property, like something got fixed or something broke that used to work, right? A home inspection is not a foundation inspection. Your home inspector might tell you something about the foundation, but it is no replacement for a structural engineer to come look at the foundation. The typical home inspection for a residential property does not include the non-standard features. Like, for example, if the home has a sump pump, a special pump to drain water from a basement, that's not usually inspected. It might be noted by the home inspector, but he's not going to test to see if it works. Irrigation systems to keep the water moist, to water the grass and the plants. Those types of systems are not usually included. Hot tubs, solar paneling, alarm systems. None of that stuff is covered in a traditional home inspection report. Yes. Yeah, not covered. Not covered. You need to bring out specialists for each of those types of inspections. The other thing is not in a home inspection is anything having to do with wood damage caused by pests. It is not, just because the home inspector doesn't say anything about termites doesn't mean you shouldn't test for termites. So we have a whole different inspection called a pest inspection for wood destroying insects. And they check for structural damage, damaged wood, basically. That's a different report, not covered by the home inspection. Yes.
Mold? is
Nope.
not covered.
Nope. Mold is not covered.
Not covered by pest inspection.
No, you need a separate mold inspector. However, if a home inspector is any good, he will comment on odors, smells. If he sees a wall that clearly looks like it has some sort of damage, like blackness, he will say, wall looks damaged, you might want to bring out a mold inspector. So they can often point you in the right direction, right? But that's not within the scope. Many home inspections actually explicitly say that they do not check for mold.
People from the same company?
No, not usually. Usually different companies. All right.
So
Yeah.
if there's no comment, and you're the seller, you can ask for a mold. separate.
Yes, you want every inspection as a seller or a buyer that will protect your deal. So if you're a seller, you want to do all those inspections that you think a typical buyer would ask for that would reassure the buyer that they should write an offer without contingencies, or at least a nice clean offer with a short contingency.
So even if the home inspector didn't say anything about mold and you feel like, hey,
There should be some investigation. Yes. Yeah, and as a buyer's agent, same idea. The home inspector might not say anything about mold, but that doesn't mean you don't want to do the inspection, especially as a buyer's agent, if your client has a sensitivity to mold. Some people have chemical sensitivities and are really sensitive to molds.
Quite common to see like a mold inspection in the disclosure.
No, but I've done them. I usually do one every couple of years for my buyers. Yeah. I did one last year for a buyer, requested by the buyer.
not
Yeah.
Recommended.
Not normally, well, yeah, usually, I mean, if I see something, usually if a home is so distressed that the walls are black and there's evidence of mold, it may be far beyond, there may be a lot of other things going on with that house, and you might be looking at a flip property, right? But it all depends. Okay. Four things that are really important about home inspections. The findings of Home Inspector John are going to be different than what Home Inspector Susie finds. They have different life experience, they have different inspection experience, and she will see stuff that he didn't see, and he will see stuff that she didn't see. And we would hope that they would both see the major stuff, but sometimes they don't. And so this is why when you're working with buyers, even if a seller has an inspection on file, you want another inspection. It will provide reassurance that nothing major was missed. And it will also give a different perspective, and you'll find different items that the other people didn't see. I had it happen last week. It was with a pest inspection, but it doesn't matter. The second pest inspector that I did for my buyers found $20,000 worth of dry rot that their inspector didn't see. So just because the seller provides a report and says everything's good is not necessarily meaning that everything is good. So it's a very good idea to get a buyer to get their own inspection.
so you had a contingency? on
Yes.
your offer?
We negotiated a big price reduction.
Oh, no, I mean, when you presented your offer, you had a contingency?
Yes.
On inspection, yeah?
Investigations, yeah.
Investigation, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's when you went on your own to get a separate pest inspection.
And home inspection,
And
yeah.
home inspection, okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in the other slide that roof and gutter may be covered.
Yes, to ask your inspector.
So yeah, so it's probably like a good screening question.
Yes, we're getting to screening questions, but you're absolutely right. Okay, number 2, no home is perfect, even if it was built 6 weeks ago. All homes have in problems, and a good home inspector is always going to find something. In the newer homes, they might find that the developer didn't follow the building code exactly right, and something isn't done just right. Or they might find that the builder did something wrong. It happens all the time. So you're always going to have something on these reports. Even if it's all minor stuff, they'll always have something to report. And with the older homes that we sell, the California building code changes all the time. And the good home inspectors will say, this is not the current code. A very common issue is if you have a second level and there's railing, a railing to prevent the person from falling over, how wide the rods are in between. The building code keeps making it narrower and narrower because they don't want the little children to get their head caught in between or fall through. Yeah. Number 3, inspectors are not contractors. They're not engineers, and they're not normally repair people. So they don't provide any pricing in these reports. Sometimes they'll give you a verbal if you ask them. But the important thing is they're not telling you how to fix it. They're just saying this isn't right. So they'll say this electrical outlet is not grounded. Very common finding. They plug their machine in and it's not a grounded line. But they're not going to say, I'm an electrician and you should do this and this and this and this. They'll say, call an electrician. Okay.
So they don't provide a service to fix all these things? Because they would be a good person to do it because they already inspected.
But they're not specialists. They're not electricians. They're not plumbers. They're not HVAC contractors. You want people who know these systems to repair things.
But, so they can't provide like projected quotes. Like,
If you have a good relationship with them, you'll give you a verbal on site. This should cost about 5,000 to 7,000, that sort of thing.
yeah, because I thought I saw some in some disclosure or something like that.
Yeah, they don't normally provide pricing. Now, some inspectors that maybe some do, but most don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, most do not. Number 4. This is a non-invasive inspection. What do I mean by non-invasive? The inspector is not going to damage any portion of the property. He is not going to look behind furniture if there's furniture there. He's not going to go into areas that are locked out. Okay? He or she is not going to poke a hole to see what's going on behind the wall or up in the attic or whatever.
We're not up in there.
They'll go in the attic, but they're not going to poke a hole to get into the attic if there's no hatch. Okay? They're not going to walk on the attic if the attic doesn't have a walkway. Okay? So these guys they are not going to do anything to damage the property. Okay? That's really important. For a condo, your inspection will be about an hour for a small to medium-sized condo. But for a big house, could take half a day. So plan accordingly.
Like several days, just one. They will inspect one in 1 day.
Yeah, usually. I've never heard of one taking more than 1 day. Maybe for a castle.
So you have to find like a new inspector.
If the house has a pool and your buyer wants it, or if you're a listing agent and your seller wants it. But I have seen lots of problems with pools where they didn't have a pool inspection. All right, let's talk about buyers versus sellers. Why get a home inspection for a buyer? For a buyer, do what we call due diligence. This idea that we want our buyers to do their homework. We want our buyers to know what they are buying and to know what they are getting themselves into with this property. We want them to do their homework. That is very important. They absolutely have to review a home inspection report. They have better negotiating power if they get a home inspection than if they don't get one, because a third party is saying this is not right. So let's suppose the seller didn't have any inspections and you as a buyer's agent brought out a home inspector who said this furnace is on its last legs. It's all rusted inside and it's amazing it produces any heat at all. It's at the end of its life. You can then go as a buyer's agent, you can bring out a heating contractor, get a bid, and then you can go to the seller and say, listen, we made the offer at a price, assuming the furnace was okay. But now we're learning this furnace is at the end of its life, and we have a bid for $10,000 from the HVAC contractor. We want you to either get it done or give us a price reduction or a credit for that.
You might have better negotiation power, but you are not as competitive.
No, after. You're in contract. In contract with a contingency.
But
You've
when
written
you-
an offer with a
when you
contingency.
write- Say, when you remove the inspection contingency, it gets you in that contract, right?
No,
That
you're in the
checks
contract already. And it's an investigation contingency. So if you write an offer without an investigation contingency, everything is still
You
negotiable.
can still do it.
Yeah, of course. But you have less leverage. The seller is not expecting you to ask for anything because you said, I don't need any right of investigation. Okay, but that doesn't stop you from trying. But I don't recommend that. I recommend you try to get an investigation contingency for your buyers all the time.
But your offer is not a.
If there's more than 2 offers, 3 offers, yeah. But I've written 3 offers that got accepted this year, and in every time I had a contingency. So the market isn't so hot anymore. Some properties, yeah, 5, 10 offers, it won't go. But I'm writing an offer tonight. We're gonna write with a contingency. There's no other offers.
Even when the seller already disclosed the home inspection.
I recommend it,
You
yes.
still doing it.
Yes, for all the reasons I said before, because no two inspectors will do the same thing. You want to protect your buyer. Now, the seller can counter you. It's an offer. You can say, listen, you've asked for a week-long investigation contingency. We already gave you all these reports. We want to take your offer, but only if you don't have it. So everything's negotiable. A good listing agent will not counter out an investigation contingency to 0. They will counter the investigation contingency down to 3 days. Why? Why will a good listing agent allow for a short investigation contingency, even in a multiple offer situation? Why would they do that?
Give the buyer.
Liability. It's like a lemon law, right? You know, you have lemon laws in some states for cars. If the seller says, Mr. Buyer, go at it, take 2 or 3 days. I've got 3 offers in backup behind you. Okay, take your 3 days, make sure you really want to buy this property. The seller builds a protective wall against liability for the buyer later on coming after them. That's exactly right. Okay, so for buyers, yeah,
So let's say you did an inspection and you want them to repair something. You said you can either ask for a price reduction or ask for credit.
yeah,
Which one would you recommend?
there's 3 choices.
Oh,
At the end of the contingency, you can ask for a price reduction, you can ask for a credit, or you can ask the seller to do the repairs. And it's situational. It depends. If your sellers are low down payment, you might ask for a credit to improve their cash on hand against their closing expenses. If it is a seller who's writing with cash or a huge down payment, then a price reduction is better. It lowers their monthly carrying costs a little bit, lowers their property taxes, lowers their closing costs in general. And depending on who the seller is, Mr. Seller, go fix it before the close of escrow. That's another path. Depends on the seller, but it depends. All right, so for buyers. So the buyer does their due diligence. They improve their negotiating power. They also learn how the systems of the house work. If they're a first-time buyer, doing a walkthrough with the home inspector is very reassuring, right? If they just go on the seller's report, nobody ever walks them around the house. No one shows them how the water gets in the house. No one shows them what the electrical panel is and how it works and stuff. And a lot of first-time buyers don't know any of that stuff. So it teaches them a little bit about how to take care of the major systems of the house. And, you know, it's one thing for someone to tell you you've got to clean the gutters. It's another thing for the home inspector to say, see all those leaves there? Okay, this gutter needs maintenance. You need to do it twice a year, at the beginning of the raining season, at the end of the raining. You know what I mean? So it's really powerful. Some loans, especially those involving down payment assistance, require a home inspection. So that's another variable for buyers you're going to need to know if your buyer's using any kind of special financing. Now, why should a seller get a home inspection? Well, first of all, big way to reduce the risk of buyer cancellation. If they don't do any inspection and the buyer uncovers something like a foundation crack or a problem underneath the house, buyer might cancel the deal right then and there. But if the seller discloses that there's a crack in the foundation, yes, they will get a lower price, but the deal will get done. Very important for seller risk, right? Also, if you're marketing the home to get top dollar, the home inspection might reveal things you want to fix. I have a listing going on the market this week, and my home inspector last week found out that the GFCIs in both bathrooms, you push the button, nothing happens. They're not tripping. Or maybe, no, it wasn't that they weren't tripping, it's that they were tripped and he couldn't reset them. The reset button wasn't working. So before we go on the market this week, we fix the GFCI so that it works. Very important, right? Improve the overall marketability of the property. Properties that have full and complete disclosure packages, including home inspections, do better than properties without. Improve the likelihood of receiving non-contingent offers. So this gets to Melanie's point, right? If you're a buyer representing a buyer and there's 7, 8, 10 other offers out against you, having an inspection from the seller side is better than nothing. At least you know somebody's looked at the house. Yes.
So, I've been talking to a friend.
Oh, that was a mistake, clearly.
That, they're interested in selling the house, and I was talking to them and they said, oh, so what type of improvements you want to do, right? And they said, want to sell it as is.
Uh-huh.
So, I said, well, you would probably have to do a home inspection, and it goes, we want to spend as little as possible.
Right.
So that's opposite of this, improve the likelihood of.
Yeah. So, you have to have a script for that. Okay. You should say to your friend, you should say, I get that. Like, always start from a position of understanding, right? Of course, you don't want to put a lot of money in this house. And you appreciate, Mr. Seller, of course, that if you do as is sale without any staging, without any improvement, not going to paint it, you're not going to fix the problems, your home is going to appear less attractive compared to others just like it. So you will not get top dollar. So I'm presuming, Mr. Seller, you're okay not getting top dollar. And then they say, yeah, we get that. You're absolutely right. We don't care. We just want out. The faster you get it sold, the better. Okay. Mr. Seller, is it important to you that if we get a buyer into contract that the deal goes through? Because if you don't provide any inspections, I guarantee you that a buyer is going to want to write with something we call the investigation contingency, which gives them a right of cancellation if the property turns out to have a problem. Now, you don't want to do any inspections, so we don't even know if there's any problems. So I strongly urge you to rethink this, because if we don't do any inspections, the danger exists that you'll get an offer where a buyer wants to do their own inspections and find something that is a high 5-figure expense, problem with the roof, problem with the furnace, problem with the crawl space, problem with dry rot, problem with termites, problem with the foundation even. And you'll lose the deal, and then we're back to square one, and it takes you even longer to get your money. Now, I have a whole other class on my coaching channel called Win the Listing. There are 3 things seller want. Very brief aside here, then I got to get back to this. 3 things sellers want. They want top dollar, they want fastest sale possible, and they want least amount of inconvenience for them. Your job is to evaluate what is number 1, 2, and 3. I asked them point blank in my listing presentation, listen, you can't have all 3. What one is most important? If they say top dollar, Patrick, in your situation, you say, then you want top dollar? Then you need to follow my advice, okay? Because you're not going to get top dollar listing it as is and not doing any inspections. I guarantee it. All right, we got to get back. So sellers gonna want to improve the marketability, improve the likelihood of receiving non-contingent offers, and local market expectations. So here in the Bay Area, it is expected that a properly marketed property will have pre-inspections. It's kind of like the way we do things here. And it becomes a red flag for buyer's agents when there's no reports. It happens, but it's rare now. 1 in 10, 1 in 15 properties. Used to be every other property. Okay, let's keep going. You can write inspections. You can order inspections before your offer is accepted. You can do it in the case of where you know it's going to be multiple offers. So you have a high degree of likelihood of there being 10 plus offers. It's going to be very expensive. Your buyers are incredibly motivated. They have to have the house. Your advice to them, consider getting a pre-inspection. Let's go out to the property with my favorite inspector and let's look around before you write the offer. Let's make a second trip out there. You know, the reward is that you could significantly increase your client's desire to write a non-contingent offer, right? And make a strong offer because they've done a pre-inspection and a third party has told them the house isn't going to fall down, right? On the other hand, they have to pay the third party inspector, maybe $600-700. And if they don't win the auction for the house, that money's gone. So it's a financial risk, right? Bigger than any one they've taken previously. So my conclusion, my strategic conclusion is that you should avoid these unless it's very competitive. If it's really, really competitive, then you certainly want your buyer to think about it. But I don't think it brings a lot of value if there's only 2 or 3 other offers, because your offer will compete better on price and a short contingency versus not having one at all. But if it's going to be an insane bidding war, then for sure you want to talk about this. Remind your clients, though, that in order to do a pre-inspection, the listing agent has to say it's okay. And the listing agents will always say to you, no written reports. Okay, I don't want anything written down that you're going to share with me. Because then the listing agent would have an obligation to share with everybody. Okay, so these reports require approval, and they're usually conducted verbally with no written report. Something to think about. Okay. So if you are a buyer agent and you are looking at a report provided online on a disclosure package, you want to verify that the seller provided report is recent. Don't just assume because there is an inspection report that it is current. Check the date, right? The other thing is read it over carefully. There may be mistakes in it. I have a listing coming on the market and my home inspector went out. He did a nice job, but he put that the water heater was he put that the water heater was from 2012, but the water heater was from 2021. He inverted 2 digits on his report, and so his report was wrong. It's only a 5-year-old water heater. It is not that old. So I read it and I saw it and I said, wait, you got to fix this. I'm going to market in a few days. You got to fix it. So we fixed it. So sometimes people make normal mistakes. It's very human, right? So you should check that. The other thing you want to see is, did they do all the normal inspections, or did they write somewhere, we could not expect X? Very common. We couldn't inspect the attic. The hatch was missing, or the hatch was too small for us to poke our heads through. We weren't able to inspect all of the crawl space. We normally, as inspectors, crawl underneath the house all the way around, but we could only do half of it because it was blocked by a beam. So you need to know what's missing. The more significant space that is missing, the weaker the report, and the more it gets problematic for the sale. You're representing a seller, and the home inspector says, I'm not able to inspect the attic at all. That's bad for marketing. I'm not able to inspect the water heater because the water heater closet was locked and I wasn't going to break the lock. That's bad for marketing, right? Because buyers are going to say, well, your home inspection report is weaker. It doesn't have all this stuff that I would expect. I don't inspect roofs. Some home inspectors won't do roofs. Some home inspectors will say, I did not walk the roof. It wasn't safe. The pitch was too steep. I just looked at it from the top of my ladder. All those types of variables are things to think about, and you want to advise your client, the seller or the buyer, about the weaknesses in the report. The other thing you should know about home inspections is that they do inspect your kitchen appliances, but very modestly. They check that the stove elements go on and off. They check that the fan over the stove goes on and off. They make sure the oven door opens and closes and the oven heats up. But that's it. They open and close the fridge. They make sure it's cold air. They run a half cycle on the dishwasher. They don't inspect the washer dryer at all. They don't inspect any other appliances like trash compactors or like space heaters or cooling systems that aren't part of the HVAC system. So they will inspect the HVAC stuff, but My point is that especially with kitchen appliances, the dishwasher may not really work very well, may not clean the dishes well, but a home inspector will never know. He runs a half cycle to make sure the machine doesn't put water all over the kitchen floor.
That they don't try out the washer and dryer,
No.
but they
Um,
will do for dishwasher.
They'll run a half cycle. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. It's a limitation on these reports. When you are looking at these reports, you really want to get a sense of what's big ticket, big important issue, and what's trivial. And you want to sort of have an idea. They'll help you. They'll sort their reports. Things that are urgent, things that are safety related, things that are just improve this or improve that. So if you're buying a home to a couple in their 60s, do they really care when the home inspector points out that the rods in between the railing on the second floor are too wide? Probably not, right? But if you're selling a home to a family with a toddler, that's a big deal, right?
They could have grandkids.
Yes, okay. Yeah, okay. You're right. You're absolutely right. The point is, and that's really a good point that you're mentioning, never prejudge what may be important to your client and what may not be important. You don't know. You may have done a good pre-screening, good pre-qual. You may have been searching with them a little while, so you have an idea. But it's incumbent on them to let you know all the questions they have about the home inspection. And then your job is to point out areas of major concern that you see as well that they may miss. Okay. And what you typically are focused on are things that are going to take a long time to fix or are going to be very expensive to fix, or that if you don't fix are going to be problems in the future. Right.
And you invite the buyer to be there when the home inspector.
I'm going to get to that, but absolutely.
You don't follow around.
Yes, you do. You do. But we'll get to that in a minute. Buyer agent mindset. Determine what is genuinely important for your client and what is less so through a process of questioning them and your knowledge of what are big ticket issues and what are small ticket issues. So what you want to do is practice this a little bit. And Matt, you can do this with your AI or you can do it with each other. What would you say if you think this is unimportant, but your client believes it is highly important? For example, inspectors will often say the polarity is reversed on the receptacle. It should be positive, negative, but it's negative, positive. A very common finding in older homes. Reverse polarity on the plug, receptacle plug. That does not normally rise to the issue of big ticket, but it is relevant. It could pose a safety concern under certain circumstances with certain plug-in devices, right? Versus there is a 3-inch crack in the foundation, right? That's the kind of thing. But if your buyer were to say to you, I'm really concerned about the reverse polarity, right? But they're ignoring the fact that there's a drip underneath into the foundation from the bottom of the bathtub. You have to remind your clients about how to separate really super important from medium important to stuff you can take care of later. Also, small ticket items, stuff that's going to cost $50 or $100. You don't want to be negotiating small ticket items with the seller as a buyer's agent. What you want to do is make sure you focus on negotiating big ticket items. So if your buyer is less concerned about a $5,000 bathroom repair because of damaged water damage versus, a $50 new receptacle connection, right? So that's the kind of things you want to think about. How do you talk about it? And you always want to be solution oriented. So, you could say to the buyer, Mr. Buyer, it looks like there's a lot of little minor electrical problems, loose wires in the attic, and we've got this reverse polarity thing, and I see that concerns you. I think after you close escrow, we might want to hire an electrician to go do and fix up all these small little things. But let's focus our energy with the seller on negotiating the $5,000 credit because the furnace is falling apart. Relative, where are you going to get the most bang for your negotiation buck, right? If you are a listing agent, your focus is on strategic remediation. What the hell is that? when you're going to market, you want your seller to do repairs that will bring in more dollars or avoid someone not writing an offer. That's what you want to do. You don't want your seller spending money on repairs that are not going to improve the sale price or are not gonna scare away a buyer. So for example, let's use the example of that railing with the rods that are too far apart. You would rarely advise a seller to replace the railing. Yeah, it is not the kind of thing that is going to usually stop the typical buyer from writing an offer in an older house. The same thing with the reverse polarity in the electrical receptacle. But if the furnace needs replacing, your seller might be advised, if they can afford it, to repair it, because the buyer certainly needs to, it's going to hurt the value of the house a little bit. Now, if the seller does a pre-inspection, they avoid a deal falling apart because of that, because they've pre-disclosed it. So these are the kinds of things. But the seller might get more money if they fix the furnace, put in a new furnace or a new roof, or repair the foundation crack, all those things. Consider advising your client to repair or replace items only if it will directly improve the sale ability of the property or secure a higher final price. Any questions about that? Okay, let's keep going. How do you pick a home inspector? There's 5 things I want you to think about. Number 1, reputation and geography. How well do they know the geography of the area? How many inspections do they do in that area? What kind of knowledge do they have about this kind of architecture? Have they ever done a house like an Eichler or a Victoria or whatever it is? Number 2, there is no licensing required for inspectors, home inspectors in California. You don't have to get a license. So do they have accreditations with the different associations, the trade groups for home inspectors? Are they friendly and informative? In my experience, I've had inspectors come out who were terrifying. They just scared my clients. Clients didn't want to write the offer, didn't want to stay in contract. It was just terrifying. This is wrong, and that's wrong, and this is terrible, and that's terrible. You want an inspector who's going to take a more nuanced, friendly approach. Not hold anything back, but not unnecessarily scare your clients, seller or buyer. How well organized are their written reports? If you've never worked with them before, ask to see a sample of their reports. How available are they going to be to answer questions for you after? How quickly will they fix a mistake? I reported the mistake I told you about earlier on the GFCIs. I reported it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 7 p.m. that night, I had the modified report. Logistics. How long? So let's say they go out with your buyer or your seller, and the buyer or seller are there, and they do a nice verbal conversation. How long does it take for them to deliver a written report? Don't assume it'll be next day. Ask them. How do they take payment? Some of these inspectors are pretty old school. They may not take Zelle or any of these modern PayPal methods. They may instead want a check. Some of them have an office and you can phone in a credit card. Make sure you know. And you advise your client, the seller or the buyer. Okay, or you have them contact them themselves. But check these things. Now, some advice. Order as early as possible. Don't wait until the last minute. Some of the best inspectors book at least a week ahead, sometimes longer. Some of them offer different styles of reports. Some of them will do a very brief summary report at a cheaper cost than a detailed systematic analysis with all kinds of advice. So check what they're offering. And the inspection day. Agents should attend the inspection with their clients. Do not do it unattended. This is especially true for buyers. Sellers, if the seller is there and they're sophisticated and they've sold a number of homes before and they know things, then maybe the home inspector, you don't need to be there. Home inspector goes, meets with your seller. But in most cases, You want to be there to run interference, to sort of provide advice and counsel as things are going on about what you're learning about the property. Pricing. Pricing of these inspections will vary, sometimes as little as $300 or $400 for a small, tiny little condo, up to almost $1,000 for a big 4 or 5 bedroom mansion, right? So check. It will vary based on the size as well as on the inspector's reputation. The best inspectors who are booking 2-3 weeks out can charge more money, right? The agents, there are agents out there, senior agents, who will only work with Inspector X. It's non-negotiable. They'll delay putting the property on the market as listing agents until their inspector goes in, because they trust that person so much and they don't trust anyone else. So they might be willing to pay a premium for that.
Like 7 days or 3 days, it's not realistic.
Investigation contingency.
Yeah,
And it depends. It depends on the inspector. It depends on the circumstances. It all depends. If a buyer has a 3-day investigation contingency, and that's about to happen, or you're worried you're going to get countered, you talk to your inspector first. You phone your favorite inspector or your favorite backup inspector and you say, can you go out there and give us at least a verbal? So you work it. Okay. Inspection day action checklist. Okay. For all agents, whether you represent a seller or a buyer, verify that personal property, if there's personal property there, that it is not blocking access to get a ladder up into the attic, to get into the crawl space, to get to get to the water heater closet, all those types of things, to get to the electrical panel in the garage. All those things.
A couch.
No.
You said that the sofa.
No, you should not move furniture.
Oh, should not.
Absolutely not. Don't move furniture. What if you get hurt? Now, agents move furniture and light items all the time. I don't. And I don't lose business because I don't move furniture. Right? If you wish to move furniture, you're doing it at your own risk. I don't recommend it. Let the professionals do it. Let the homeowner do it. And the home inspector won't do it. So if furniture needs to be moved out of the way, somebody's got to do it before the inspection. Number 2, make sure that power, gas, and water will be on. You'd be surprised. There are properties out there where they've been vacant for a while and the seller is not paying for utilities. But the contract explicitly says that the seller will have utilities on for inspections during escrow. It's in the RPA. Your job as a buyer's agent is to make sure it's true. Your job as a listing agent is to make sure it's true, right? All right.
Right, and they, utility, and they can't just, and they have the investigation. Can they just arrange to get it started?
Yeah,
Like,
for a month or a day or 3 days or whatever. Yeah.
oh,
Verify that any locked things that are behind a lock are unlocked or the lock is taken away. Access to crawl spaces are sometimes locked at the exterior. Water heater closets sometimes have a padlock on them. Electrical panels sometimes have a padlock on them. Check. I have been embarrassed, I admit it, in my career, where I sent out a home inspector and the home inspector is there and he says, and I'm there with my buyer, and I can't get into this electrical panel, Stephen. It's got a lock on it. I can't break this lock. Oops. Should have thought of that, right? Now, if you're a listing agent, you have 2 other things you want to do. You want to make sure that the water heater is properly braced so that the home inspector doesn't call it out for not being properly braced, because it's always on the seller to make sure the water heater is properly done. Number 2, same sort of idea for carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. They also should be all taken care of by your seller before you go on the market, so that a home inspector, yours or the buyer's, doesn't call it out as missing. There's a lot to think about with home inspections, right? So I wanted to leave a little bit of time. We're near the end, but I want to leave a few minutes for questions. And you guys have been great. You've been asking me lots of questions. Does anybody else have any questions, or does anyone want to ask any other questions about this? I answered all the questions. Oh, no.
test the smoke detector and alarm yourself. You just want to make sure they're there.
The question is, do you test them? The home and smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. I prefer to get them tested because I know the home inspector is not just gonna look on the wall. He's gonna, well, it depends on the home inspector.
Could you?
It could be you, could be your seller.
Oh,
But whoever is come before the inspection happens, now especially for listings, you want to make sure they're there and working before. But many home inspectors will just say that they're present and won't test them. So some home inspectors will test them. Okay, so it depends on the inspector. Okay, there are very specific rules for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. You have to have a carbon monoxide detector on every level of the house. And you have to have a smoke detector in the central common area on each floor, as well as one in each bedroom on each floor. So if you have a 5-bedroom home with 2 stories, you need 7 smoke detectors. 1 for each common area on both levels, and 1 for each of the 5 bedrooms is 7.
but not fire,
Smoke detector.
but not fire. Right.
Smoke and carbon monoxide. And you can get combo ones too, but you only need you only need 1 carbon monoxide detector for each floor. So a combo is maybe not an efficient way to go. But my point is to check out all these things before the inspection so that you can have a smooth inspection. That's when you're representing a seller especially, you want it so your inspection looks really clean, right? If you're representing a buyer, you go to the listing agent and say, hey, is everything cool? Do you have everything unlocked? When I was there the first time, the electrical box was locked. Can you make sure it's unlocked for my home inspection tomorrow? That's your job as buyer's agents. All right. If you want a copy of this presentation, you just click this QR code on the Zoom. I'm sorry it's not displaying. We were having trouble with the big screen today. But in the Zoom room, you can see the QR code. So if you guys who are not on the Zoom room want to get the QR code, just go to Melanie's computer or to Patrick's computer, and you can get a copy of the presentation. Thank you guys so much for being here and joining me in this conversation. There's a lot to know about home inspections. Yeah. All right, guys.